What's up, guys? It's Erica at Rainbow Factory, and today we're going to be doing a little color study with a fall landscape. It's October, the most beautiful time of year, in my opinion. You have those warm colors in the foliage and the grasses next to the cool purpley skies. It's just gorgeous, and that's what we're trying to capture today in this little study. I've given myself 30 minutes because I know that if I don't time myself, I will keep painting and painting and fiddling, and I don't want to spend all day on this. Therefore, we're going to keep this very loose and simple and just have fun with it. I am starting with 4 colors, but you'll see a little later that I do add one more. So to start off, we have titanium white, lemon yellow, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, and cerulean. If you don't have these particular colors, no big deal. Just get you whatever you have and go with it. It's all about getting in there and just painting. Now later I am going to add a ultramarine blue, which is basically just a dark blue. My reference photo is sort of a fall scene, I guess. We do have some yellow grasses, but the trees are still pretty green. So I am taking my own artistic liberty here, and I'm going to be adding some fall foliage in those trees, which is the beautiful thing about being an artist. We get to do whatever we want, right? I began with a very loose sketch of those 2 hills and immediately started laying in the sky colors, cerulean and white, and lots of water in there to keep it nice and wispy. This is where I get into a bit of trouble because I'm trying to mix a black with that lighter cerulean blue, and it just did not work out. So I added the ultramarine blue, which just a dark blue will work here, in order to get those darks in the trees. Speaking of darks, I always, when working with acrylics, tend to begin with the darkest darks on the particular object that I'm painting. So here I'm painting the trees, so that's why you see a lot of that dark color there. Don't worry, later I'm going in to add the lighter details and it will all come together. Adding my darks into the hills now. Keep in mind when you're watching this video that I have no idea what direction I'm going in as I sit down to paint. I don't have a step-by-step idea in my mind as to what I'm going to do. I'm letting the moment dictate what I do next. And here I just decided I wanted to put some greens, some more limey greens in that back hill. And I can't really tell you why I did that. It just is something that naturally came to me. That's why everyone's artwork looks different, and that's the beautiful thing about art. There is no right or wrong answer. Notice how easily trees just come together when you start with a dark base where the shadows are, and then just thickly lay on the lighter colors, like the midtones of the leaves on top of that dark base. And later you'll see I build on top of that with the highlights in the same easy way. It's amazing how easy foliage can be when you do it that way. And it looks very loose and like there's movement there. Speaking of movement, I've made my leaves go in sort of the same direction, especially in the foreground. They're all kind of pointing towards the left upper corner. I think that gives it almost a sense of movement, like there's wind, and these are pretty stormy looking skies. So I think that's fitting here. It also kind of gives it a Van Gogh quality that I just like. I can paint something that looks like a cloud. I can paint a relatively okay sky, but I'm not happy with my skills in this area yet. I have a lot of practice to go before that kind of clicks for me, which is perfectly fine, and that's why I do these studies. And in this particular study, something did occur to me. I now realize that the underside of my clouds need to be smoother. My brush strokes need to be longer and smoother just on the underside, juxtaposed to more choppy brush strokes on the top. And I'm excited to have learned this, and I can't wait to paint another sky so that I can practice more and see how that works out. There is no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing here. I'm just pushing and pulling at these values, these lights and these darks, until it kind of comes together and I'm happy with it. Things start to get a little more exciting now as I add the highlights or the beginning of highlights to the trees. So they're starting to really take shape. Again, just using very random brush strokes with thick paint, the very tip of my brush on those farthest trees, and also keeping those strokes in the same direction. I start to get into a little bit of trouble here because my colors and values are just blending into that back hill. So I realize that I need to make that hill darker in order for my lighter values in those front trees really stand out against it. Realizing now that I need some darker values back there. As usual, I'm pretty bad about that. I always make my darkest darks too light and realize halfway through the painting they need to be darker. So I'm working on that, but it's okay because it's just paint, no biggie. So I guess I said earlier that I needed to make that hill darker in order for the foreground values to not blend so well into that. And I guess looking back on this now, I decided to make the hill lighter so that the trees in the foreground are darker in comparison. So that's what I'm doing here. And just notice how putting more contrast between those values really made those trees pop into the foreground and stand out. That's why value is so important in painting. Adding even more contrast with darker values in those trees. Finishing off this quick painting now with just some loose texture and highlights and very minor details in that frontmost hill, and we're almost done. So we're just putting the final little highlights on those trees and adding a little bit of sky behind the back trees. And this is the most fun part of the painting process because all the hard work is done and the highlights just make it all come together and bring it to life.